In the latest news, just your shocked Pikachu face right here. Twitter is very, very angry at me to absolutely everybody's complete lack of surprise. So basically, here's what happened. I saw this tweet from Dr. Sydney Watson. I don't know who she is. This might sound insane, but I feel like there's a conspiracy against mainstream rock / heavier music. I never hear heavy bands on the radio. It's the same terrible rap / pop bullshit. And you cannot tell me that the people that didn't enjoy heavier music because the 90s and 2000s are full of it. New age music is so soulless and repetitive, it turns your brain to Swiss cheese. So I quote tweeted that and said, there's no conspiracy, gent killed metal, no songs, just riffs, and there are no larger than life stars like Fred Durst. Every band looks like a bunch of baristas who are scared to offend anyone. And let me tell you, people not happy with this one. People are furious. I'll talk about this. My larger point here, just to be clear, I'll tell you what I'm doing, people. I am fighting for the future of rock and metal. I'm fighting for you, real rockers. I am fighting for you. I'm trying to save our culture. But in all seriousness, you know, what I want to do is I want rock to be as popular as it used to be in the 90s and the 2000s. That's what I want. And I understand that maybe what I said here might be upsetting to people who like gent, or I don't know. I don't know why they're so upset at me, but people were mad at me. And I thought it was kind of funny. In comparison, there's this other story here. Nothing More's Johnny Hawkins ran over his girlfriend with a truck in 2021. Details, police and court records. So these are not allegations. The singer of this band, Nothing More, literally ran over his girlfriend with a truck. Is just coming out now. And all the comments on social media are supportive of him. Like, oh, he's a great guy. You know, she's crazy. There's more to the story than what you see here. Everyone's on board with him. They think he's great. So here's what it is, people. In the year of our Lord, 2023, for me to have the relatively uncontroversial opinion that rock is not as popular now as it was in the 2000s because there aren't big stars anymore. Literally more offensive to people than running over your girlfriend with a truck. That's the world we live in. Anyway, so people are not happy about this. And I wanted to kind of explain this, clarify my position a little bit, and just talk about this a little bit. Because again, my mission, like, I'm not here to dunk on rock. I feel like that's what people think. I want to help the genre. Help me help you. Okay, so I want to explain what I'm talking about here, because I think the root of the problem here is that rock fans are either too young to remember, or maybe they've forgotten. Yeah, it's tough love time. That's what it is. It's tough love time. I think that they're just a little bit maybe misinformed. I don't know. Well, let's talk about this. So my point here is that, you know, a lot of people were saying, what about Bring Me the Horizon? Bring Me the Horizon is a mainstream band. What about Sleep Token? What about Bad Omens? What about all these other bands? And with all due respect to all of them, I think they're great bands. Bring Me the Horizon is probably the closest thing to what we have as like a mainstream, you know, metal band these days. But even then, they're not really mainstream. And so first, what I wanted to do is just quickly recap exactly how popular rock was back in the day for anybody who may have forgotten. And then we'll talk about some of the problems with rock now and what we can do about it, okay? You guys know I love Bring Me the Horizon, okay? You guys know I love them. You guys know that I have nothing but respect for them. Same with Bad Omens, same with Sleep Token. I wish them all the success in the world. But we've got a long way before we can call any of those bands mainstream the way that they were in the past. So I want to show you a few examples of this, okay? How about this one, for example? Fred Durst on the cover of Us Weekly. Sex Tell-All, Britney versus the Beast. Claiming a torrid fling, rocker Fred Durst has gone public on their alleged sex life. Spears' friends deny it all. What's the truth? Along with Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt, the cover of Us Weekly, okay? Like, this is literally like the biggest like gossip magazine on the planet at that time, and he's on the cover with the most famous pop star of the time. Okay, yeah, Eminem had a song about them. Yes, I mean, you know, that's just one example. Okay, also Pete Wentz on the cover of J14, like it's a whole special issue. Pete and Ashley on the cover. Pete hanging out with Rihanna here. Pete's shocking new haircut. He was also on the cover of Cosmo Girl, which was, a huge magazine at the time. I don't know if it's still around. I think it is. Again, with, Jessica Alba. So he's on the cover of this. Other people, Zac Efron, Chris Brown, Ryan Sheckler. This is how popular, this is how mainstream these people were. Okay. Again, I'm going to keep driving this point home because I want everybody to understand what mainstream actually means. Mainstream does not mean they had a TikTok song. Mainstream does not mean they sold out this 2,000 seat venue in your town, okay? Mainstream is what I'm talking about here. Yes, there's a difference between mainstream alternative and actually mainstream. Exactly, that's my point. Another example is, remember, Linkin Park. Looking back at Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory, the best-selling debut album of the 21st century. Okay, that's how fucking popular Linkin Park was. The best-selling debut album of the entire 21st century. That's how popular this band was. Another example of this, I've talked about, TRL before, but, look at this. So here's Pierre from Simple Plan on TRL in 2003. There's like a crowd of these girls lined up there to hang out and be on TV with Pierre from Simple Plan. And are they there for Pierre or are they just there to be on TRL? Who knows? But remember, he also had his own TV show on MTV at really the peak of MTV's relevance. Pierre had his own, it was, what was the name of it? Damage Control. He had his own prank kind of show on MTV for 2 seasons. They were also in the Olsen Twins movie. I mean, it doesn't get much more mainstream than the Olsen Twins. And they weren't just in the Olsen Twins movie. They were the central element of the plot in this movie. The entire plot of this movie is that, I forget whether it was Mary-Kate and Ashley, but she was going to skip school so that she could take the bus into New York City and give a copy of her demo to Simple Plan. That was the entire point of this movie, and this is an Olsen Twins movie. So I could keep going. The point I want to make here is that is what being truly mainstream famous is. Okay. When people point to how many tickets a band sells, that definitely means something for sure, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're relevant. I'm sure Celine Dion sells a shitload of tickets. Does that mean that Celine Dion is relevant? Not necessarily. The point I want to make here is that this is what it looks like to be actually mainstream famous, okay? Being on the cover of Us Weekly with Britney Spears, being in an Olsen Twins movie, getting mobbed on TRL. TRL, again, another great example of this. Remember, bands like Newfound Glory, even Korn, Blink-182, these bands were going head-to-head with Backstreet Boys and NSYNC on TRL and sometimes winning. That is how popular this stuff was at the peak. With all due respect to those bands, the fact that they had a moment on TikTok, it's kind of hard to say, does that compare to the mainstream success of these bands or mainstream fame of these bands in the 2000s? Well, it's kind of an unfair comparison because like it says in the chat here, problem is we only have metal content on YouTube, TikTok, and streaming services. There's no media TV shows, heavy metal shows anymore. That's the problem. It's kind of true. There is no more, I've talked about this before, but the monoculture, whereas back then everyone was watching the same TV shows and magazines and stuff like that doesn't exist anymore. TikTok and YouTube and stuff are kind of the closest thing we have. But, we've seen there's people like Billie Eilish or Doja Cat and whoever that are able to break through, or Jack Harlow, or for that matter, Mr. Beast. It is possible to create breakthrough stars in the TikTok era, but rock and metal are not doing it. And that's kind of my point here. I'm not here to dunk on these bands and say, oh, these bands suck. I'm not putting them down. My point is that if you care about the health of the genre, which I think you should, because remember, we all look back on these days as being the glory days, right? Like everybody does. There's a reason why nu metal and emo and pop punk are the 3 most popular kind of alternative music now. And people keep going back to that stuff because that's when the genres were at their peak. Like I said, Bring the Horizon is probably the closest thing we have to a mainstream metal band right now. And that's great. Good for them. Even if we say that they are mainstream, I feel like they're kind of one notch down from that, but whatever. Even if we say that they're mainstream, that's one. Okay, that's one band. The closest thing we have, I know I know it sucks, but the closest thing we have is MGK. This is TMZ, which is the biggest gossip blog on the planet still. where they're, talking about people like Kevin Costner and Larsa Pippen and stuff like that. And TMZ is covering MGK. Megan Fox rejoins Instagram to deny MGK's cheating rumor. MGK is a mainstream celebrity. All right. Travis marrying a Kardashian is definitely helping rock music. It is. The point I want to make here is that the thing that is frustrating to me is that rock fans don't want the genre to be mainstream anymore. They're kind of not admitting reality. And that's all I want here is like, let's just admit reality for what it is, which is rock is not as popular as it used to be. And why would you want rock to be more popular? That's what a lot of people ask, or a lot of people say is like, oh, well, why do you always talk about this? Who cares if this stuff is popular or not? I like seeing these bands in small venues. I don't want to pay more for tickets. Well, I get that. That does make sense. I understand that. However, the fact of the matter is that if you want more people to be making music that you like, they've got to be able to make a living at it. Like you can't grind it out playing 500-seat venues into your 30s. Like not very many people are going to want to do that. Most people, they're 32 years old, grinding it out. They have to live in a bus live in a van 9 months out of the year to grind it out playing these shows. Most people are going to quit, right? So if you want these bands to be around, you should want them to be able to make a little bit of money at it. I mean, like back in the day, like Mest, for example, that pop punk band, Madonna signed them. I did a podcast with Tony, and I think that he said that they got like $100,000 to shoot the video for Cadillac. Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't you like it if bands got $100,000 to make music videos, or like tour support? When the label will loan them some money to go out on tour, like so they don't have to like starve. Wouldn't you want that? I mean, if you like these bands, you should want them to make a little bit of money, right? It's the fans that don't want this stuff to be popular, as you can see by, I'm not even going to read all of them because Jesus Christ, people got angry at me on Twitter about this. Like, this is one of the most unpopular tweets I have ever made, and I've made a lot of unpopular tweets. People are very angry about this. Like, they're furious at me about this. And all I said was like, guys, we got to do better. And then you look at the bands. I'm sorry, I'm just going to throw someone under the bus here. But you look at some of the bands that people are pointing out as like, the future of the genre. Like, people are talking about like this band Invent Animate as like the next big thing, the future of the genre. And I'm sorry, but like, listen to this, people. Like, there's nothing here. I'm sorry, there's nothing here. And I want to explain something I said here. When I said Gent killed metal, no songs, just riffs. This is what I'm talking about. And listen, give them 10 years and they'll be popular. 10 years. So that's what it is now. We've got to wait 10 years for a band to get moderately popular. This band is a great example of what I'm talking about here is the genre now. Like, look back to those bands like Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, My Chemical Romance, Paramore, Blink, all those bands of the 90s and 2000s, even Korn, had incredible songs, great hooks, catchy stuff, and you can say they're corny, whatever you want, but you compare that with this, this is barely a song. This is just like dudes jamming. There's nothing here, especially in metal now. Everything is some combination of like crappy gent riffs in the verse, and then a Linkin Park chorus, and then maybe some shoegaze bits in here somewhere. If you like it, that's totally fine. Listen to whatever you want, but objectively speaking, like, there's nothing here. The fact that rock fans are saying, like, that metal fans are like, oh, this is the future of the genre, this band's blowing up. They're not blowing up. They're not. I'm sorry. If you like it, that's fine. But it's not great. Yeah, add in some gatekeeping stands, and that's what metal is now. There is no new sound. It's a lie if we say there is. I hate to say it, but that's a fact. I hate to say it because that I don't like to be the person saying that, new music sucks. I don't like being that person. But there is, there's nothing new. There's nothing new. I don't think Bad Omens took any risks. I think Bad Omens just have good songs and a charismatic frontman. I don't think Bad Omens takes a lot of risks. I think Polyphia, speaking of which, Polyphia takes risks. For sure. Like with their aesthetics, you know, with some of their collabs and stuff. The other problem is that nobody wants to be a star. Like, look at these guys. They all look like waiters. There's nothing interesting about them. Nobody wants to be a star. Nobody's willing to put their ass on the line like Fred Durst. Look, say what you want about him, but Fred Durst put himself out there and made himself a star. Nobody wants to be that now, other than, you know, you look at probably the three biggest standouts now. Number one, MGK. Number two, Ronnie Radke. Number three, Ollie Sykes. Those are the three biggest stars. MGK, not afraid to take some fucking arrows, right? Same thing with Ronnie, obviously. Not afraid to take some arrows. Falling in Reverse is like mainstream close. Like, he's number one on rock charts all the time. There are some, like, you know, kind of normie-ish people that know who Falling in Reverse is. Like, Falling in Reverse and Bring Me the Horizon are the two closest things we have to, like, mainstream right now. And you can see why, because Ollie and Ronnie are both stars. And they're not afraid to look like it and act like it. And now everyone looks like a fucking barista, and they're afraid to say or do anything that would, like, be remarkable in any way at all. That's the problem. Nobody wants to be a star anymore. It sucks. Nobody wants to write songs anymore. Everyone just wants to play riffs and dress in all black and take generic ass promo shots in their fucking practice space and expect that they're gonna, like, be famous somehow. Like, well, I just feel like rock has lost the plot. They've stopped taking chances. They've stopped trying to write songs. Remember, people, look who you're competing with for attention, okay? Look who you're competing with. There's a world in which people like this exist, okay? Why in the world would anybody pay attention to your bland fucking gent band when somebody like this exists? Why in the world would they pay attention to you when this person exists, right? I mean, because that's reality. But look, Polyphia, they're doing it. Like, Polyphia's doing their version of this. You know, they're doing, like, basically guitar thirst traps. But this is the world that we live in. You got to compete with this for attention, and it feels like nobody in rock or metal wants to do that anymore other than Ronnie, MGK, and Ollie Sykes. And you can see that they're having success because of that. So, I don't know. I hope that all made sense. The point that I wanted to make here, again, this is not about me dunking on the current generation of rock and metal so much. It's not that. My point is, like, I want the genre to be what it used to be. And the first step towards doing that is to admit where we have gone wrong, which is that it's boring, people. Rock is boring now. It's boring. That's a fact. It's boring, and that's the reason why it is no longer in the mainstream. So that's my point here. We've got to admit the facts. Step one is admitting you have a problem. Help me help you, rock and metal scene. Admit that you have a problem. That's what I think. That's what I think. So will that make Twitter any less mad at me? Probably not. Twitter just hates me. I don't know. Who hates me more, Twitter or Reddit? I don't know. I want rock to be what it used to be. Been confirming that he's a rock boomer. I know. Listen, I hate being that person. I do. I hate being that person. Do you know how much it pains me to say that? I hate it, but that's where we're at. So there we go. Twitter, I hope someday we can make up and be friends. That's what I hope. But look at these guys. They all look like waiters.